Hey, yo everybody, and welcome back to Chris Flies Planes. Today we are doing the first in a series of tutorial flights in the various planes that are available for FSX and P3D. Today we are flying the Iris F22 Raptor, a 5th generation fighter jet, primarily flown by the US Air Force. This video was kind of inspired, I guess is the word, by Christopher Perez on YouTube. He had some questions to ask about the F22 Raptor, so I thought, you know what, let's make this into a little bit of a thing. So initially we're going to be doing a just like a quick start flight, and then get up in the air, have a look at some of the systems and tutorial and the available systems that we can use, and land. We're flying today from Edwards Air Force Base in California, and flying up to Nellis in Nevada, I believe, just outside Las Vegas. So we're starting with the plane switched on, which is pretty unusual. That's so I can show you this. So on the center panel here, if we go to config, system, and shutdown, it puts the plane in shutdown mode. I always recommend that you fly planes from cold and dark like this. It's very useful. It kind of gets you into the habit of turning the plane on, getting to understand the systems, and also I think for me personally, it really improves like my immersion within the game. So that's how we're going to start this. So we're going to work our way around from this left panel here and work around clockwise to do the pre-starting engine checks. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details as we work our way around. We're going to do that in a later video. But for now, it's just a quick start really. So the approach system should be set to auto. The yaw trim should be centered. Alt flaps should be set to normal. The FADEC, which is the flight computer, should be set to both. Daily interior lights, it doesn't really matter so much. We're flying at day, so we're just going to leave them how they are. But if you need some lights, you've got console lights, MFDs, etc, etc, etc. You can turn them up. Got the exterior lights, which I'm going to set to anti-collision. They can stay off. Fuel tank should be set to all. The AAR, which is the air-to-air refueling doors, should be closed. The AAR lights should be off. Then working our way up, the hook, so this is for carrier takeoff and landings, well primarily carrier landings, but should be set to up. Parking brake, on some versions of this plane, this is a 3-stage switch. On some versions it's a 2-stage switch. This is 2-stage, so basically you've got release and anti-skid. Anti-skid actually means full parking brakes, so bear that in mind. But on some planes you can go up to full parking brake, so just check that. Landing lights and taxi lights should be off, which they are. The master should be set to safe, so this is for the weapon system, but obviously we're flying in FSX, so there are no weapons. The landing gear should be set to down. The electric panel, the generator should be off. This switch is non-functional, and then the APU should be set to ARM. Working our way right, the battery should be set to off. The ECS, which is the environment control system, I'm not so sure this works, but we'll go into that in a later video maybe. Radio volumes, once again, I'm not so sure they work. Aux comms, I don't actually understand this panel very much yet, so again, we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a later video, but don't worry about it too much. Let's get this armrest out of the way if we can. Nope, not going to let me go out of the way. Then we have the oxygen system, so the onboard oxygen generation system. I'm going to set this to auto and leave it off for now. We'll turn it on once we've started the engines. So that is the pre-engine start in the F22 Raptor. So to start the engine, it's super simple. So we're going to hit battery on. We are going to hit the left and right generators on. And we're going to start the APU. So the APU, you're going to see it in most planes within FSX or anything bigger than like a single prop. It's the auxiliary power unit, and in fighter jets, normally it's a small turbine engine which starts up and just either creates enough power or enough rotational force to start the actual main engine. So that's why you can hear that kind of slightly hellish noise. Whilst this is on, we're just going to go into the center panel here again. So currently we're in the config menu. If you hit menu, it'll take you back out. We're going to go to config and system. So you've got the rapid start up in the top left. This is going to just start all of the systems and make everything work. Again, I don't really recommend this. I don't think it's very beneficial. But if you want to do that, if you're in a hurry, by all means press it. The FT here is external fuel tank. We click that, going to give us an external fuel tank. It's going to massively increase our flight range. We're not going to fly with them today, so I'm going to turn them back off. And I'm not entirely sure what this button does, but let's keep that one on. We'll go into that in a later video. Another thing you can do, and Christopher Perez, this was actually your main question. So you hit MMD up top here, and these are all the settings for the map which is going to start centrally. So you've got waypoints, airports, this is the airways, I believe. You've got your VOR navigations, your ILS, your various navigation things that are going to show up on the map. One thing I would recommend to do this regardless is hit Topo-N. We go back and then menu and go back to the map. It gives us terrain, it's a little bit nice. So anyway, let's start the engine. So to start the left engine, we're just going to click the throttle here. It's going to take it out of indents, and that will start left engine. So click that. You can see over here on the right panel that the ITT is going up and the N2 is going up. Sorry, the M1 and the N2 are going up. When these stabilize, engine is started, basically. It's that simple. So let's just give that a moment. Also see the hydraulic system pressure here going up. Okay, so that's pretty much stable now. So we start the right engine, so same situation, click that out of ident. If you have a exterior throttle, or however you're controlling the throttle really, you're not going to have any throttle control until you click them out of ident. So if you think your throttle's not working, it probably is, it's just probably locked back in cutoff. Okay, do a quick control check here. You can see on this panel, just around here, as we do the control check, you can see everything kind of changing. It's always good. Okay, that's the engine started. So, as I said, our flight plan today is to fly from Edwards AFB in California up to Nellis AFB in Nevada. If I go up here, so we've got our center little kind of control panel here with these buttons. Click this guy here. It's going to show us our waypoint, our range to waypoint, and our estimated time we're going to hit it. You can use these buttons down here to flip through all the pages. So yeah, let's get up in the air. First key thing. So taking off this plane is spectacularly easy. It's one hell of a plane to take off in. We're going to push it up to probably about 70% throttle. Make sure the parking brake is turned off. And we're rolling. And rotate is at around 160 knots. You can see on the head-up display here. This top corner here is knots. When we hit around 160, we're going to slowly pull back on the left stick and rotate. Keep us steady down the middle here. Rotate. Here we go. As soon as we have a positive rate of climb, i.e. we're going up, my trim is a bit funny, hence that little wobble. We're going to hit gear up. You can either hit G,
low altitude,
or
low
you can
altitude.
hit this lever down here. You can see what's gone up, and our gear is up. And we're just going to go into probably like a roughly 10 degree climb. I'm just my trim sorted out. So the trim is, we've got elevator trim. I've got it mapped to my throttle, and that just basically holds your nose steady at whatever angle you need it to. Mine's got a bit funny there, just like to put it down. We're going 10 degree climb. We're going to climb up to around 10,000 feet today. You can see on the middle panel here, because I've loaded the flight plan, we have a line. This is our flight plan, direction to the next waypoint. We're just going to turn to meet that. There is... Yeah, okay, so if we hit this button here over the MMD, we set the waypoint as our target, and you can see up here on the heading indicator, this white bar here shows we are flying towards the waypoint. So again, we're just going to climb up to 10,000 feet and then level ourselves out, and I'll go into some more of the more of the systems in this plane. Those down. Okay, so first thing I'm going to show you is again, along this panel here, doing different buttons. We'll go into a few of those during this flight, but the important one here is this button here, A-P, the autopilot. Click that, it's going to open this screen. First thing we're going to do is altitude control. We're going to click that button and click on. This will lock us in and the altitude display here. So we're currently locked in at 10,200 feet. We're going to change that to 10,000 feet. So we're going to click this little button to the left of it, type 10,000 here, and click the mark button. This is going to lock us in at 10,000 feet. We also have on this screen the pitch autopilot. What this will do is, if you're in a 10-degree climb and you hit this, it will hold your 10-degree climb regardless. I don't use that very often, to be honest, but it is quite handy. So go back to autopilot screen, and then we've got heading control. So here, you can set your heading. Click that, it will lock you into the heading you're set at, and again, you can change that as you see fit. If I type in 029, which is our current heading, it will lock us in there. You can also hit nav, which will lock you into your flight plan. You can see now I'm not touching the controls or anything. The plane is flying itself. It's going to fly us to join this flight plan here. Below that we have speed control. Again, we can hit speed. It locks us in at 503 knots. We're going to set that down to 450 and mark. And that will lock us in at 450 knots to engage. You can also set the mark and you can set the source. We're going to keep it on AAS and at 450. Finally, you have approach control. This is to fly a ILS approach into an airport. It's like an instrument approach. It gives you basically a beacon, a signal you home in at, and the plane can basically fly itself into the runway. I will show you that when we get up to Nellis. I'm not actually very experienced in this, so it may not go very well, but we shall see how it goes. One thing I forgot to do, by the way, is turn the APU on. Once you start the engine, you can turn the APU off, and you can hear that horrible sound. Will go away. Also turn OBOGS on while we're here. Okay. So we are now flying in basically full autopilot. You can see on this left screen here, autopilot is set to 1, which is very useful. And this is just going to fly us to the flight plan. It's going to try and hold us at about 10,000 feet, and it's going to hold us at around 450 knots. So we can now kick back and relax. So to show you a few other things along this top panel here, things especially I find useful. One good one, flight data. This is going to show you your actual altitude, your actual airspeed, and the time. What else did it show you? I haven't really looked through this. So this is your total fuel, your ground speed, and various other things I don't necessarily get quite yet. One really useful thing here is for fuel sections. This is again in other and fuel. This is going to show you your total weight remaining. More importantly, it's going to show you your fuel time remaining, which is currently at 1 hour and 10 minutes. This is exceptionally useful if you have a long flight plan. I would recommend keeping this up. If I just go over to autopilot quickly and turn speed off, so I'm now in control of my speed, go back to fuel, you can see if I just pull back by about 20% throttle, that's going to go up to 3 hours. If I push forwards all the way, that's going to go down to about 8 minutes. So it's very important that you manage your fuel, and this screen is a really useful way of doing that. The reason it goes down to 9 minutes, by the way, is if we jump out the plane and I go to full throttle, we are in afterburner there. You do not want to be in afterburner for very long at all, ever, because your fuel will literally burn itself out. So this is a really useful screen. There's a lot of other things here which I don't necessarily fully understand yet, so we'll go into them in a later video, but I'm just going to show you kind of the basic stuff you need to fly this and the useful stuff you need to fly it. IFF, so this is your identify friend off throws thing. Again, not that useful. It allows you to set your squawk code, which is currently set to 1200. You've got your waypoints. You have navigation. So this allows you to set your different navigation radios. So you go all the way to the bottom, you can go to frequency adjust. We'll talk into that a little bit more when we get towards our landing point. Then you've got your radios, COM1 and COM2. I seem to remember reading that COM1 is only really properly modelled, so you don't need to worry about COM2. Again, I'll look into that a little bit more, but I think that's the case. Let's get our speed set back on again. So once again, we're going to engage the autopilot and then set the speed. So moving down through the panels, we have here, we've got flight controls and systems, so your hydraulic system pressure, your electric amps and volts, and then this is all of your different control surfaces. You have your central map here, which you can zoom out on and in on. So we're going to pull that out a little bit. You see the range here is about 200 nautical miles, so you can see we're probably about 150 nautical from our next waypoint. We can check that. 144, pretty close. On our right hand screen here we have our engine information. Again, I don't 100% understand the whole M1, N2 ITT thing. I will look into this a little bit more for our next video, but for now, just around here is pretty good. Bear that in mind. Then down at this bottom screen here, we have our fuel tank status. So it shows you our fuel flow in gallons per hour, fuel weight, and remaining time. Again, this is exceptionally useful. Though for me, a lot of the time when I'm flying, I tend to put it up on this screen right here. And again, you can see we've got about an hour of flight time remaining. And aside from that, that's pretty much everything you need to know about this plane. I don't know how actually realistic this plane is to real life. It being a 5th generation fighter, means it's a very, very advanced plane. You have a flight computer which basically handles a lot of things, which makes flying it a lot easier. It also has thrust vectoring on the engines. I'm not sure if that's animation modelled. We can find out maybe. Ooh, hard to say. Basically, the engines will vector their thrust. We seem to have killed our autopilot. And it allows you to do some extremely unusual maneuvers, which very few planes can actually do. I'm going to try and do a video about them kind of later on. It'll be like part of a series in understanding the F22 Raptor. I need to practice them myself because they are absolutely insane. But yeah, as I say in every video where I fly this plane, I love this plane. This plane is fantastic. It's just such a pleasure to fly. The systems are such a pleasure to use. And yeah, it's really cool. Next video I'm going to do will be more of a kind of in-depth look at all the systems. So as we go through the startup, we're going to talk about the systems and what they do and how they're applied, all that kind of stuff. When we get up in the air, we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual flight capabilities of it, so the super cruise and max speed, all that kind of stuff. Talk about a little bit of the history as well. It's a very interesting plane. It was not dramatically successful. And then I might do a third video where we just try and push the plane to its limits. We see what we can really achieve in this plane. We try some more of the acrobatic maneuvers. We try taking it to its max speed, to its max height, and just try and push the plane really and see how far we can go with it. My plan is on YouTube, on Chris Flies Planes, to do this with most of the planes I fly. This is one of the more simple ones. So we'll also look at doing it with the Tornado GR1, which I'm really excited about. We have the F15, we have the F18 Superbug. I'm trying to get my hands on some of the Russian planes, some of the Sukhois, because they look absolutely amazing. I also have Concorde available. This is going to be a long way down the line. Concorde is a ridiculous plane to fly. It is fast, it is maneuverable, and it's a passenger jet. It's insane. And yeah, any other planes I see really, I would love to just kind of... Eurofighter as well. I've got Eurofighter available, so I'd love to do some flying in the Eurofighter. But yeah, any planes we can think of. I would love to do just kind of the format of a quick start and flight systems. The second video will be in depth and training, and then the third video will be let's see what this plane can really do. So we are about 13 minutes from our first waypoint. Our first waypoint is basically going to be the turn in to Nellis Airbase. We're going to be trying to fly an ILS approach into Nellis. So what we'll be doing as we approach closer is locking in the ILS system, and that should give us a on our head-up display here a kind of aim and glide slope to fly into. I haven't personally had a huge amount of success flying this yet, not because of the system, but because of my own inabilities. We'll see how it goes, but it'll be a good way to show you guys the ILS system in this plane, and yeah, we'll see. One thing I've noticed about this plane is occasionally the autopilot seems really funky. So you can see now it's not holding us particularly well at 10,000. What I might try and do is just set everything off and back on. So reset that. I'm going to reset you. And I'm going to reset you. And I found in quite a few planes and flight sims, sometimes just cycling the systems, if you have any issues, can be really useful. It can really kind of solve the problems. Let's just jump out of the plane and look at this while we're flying. It is an absolutely stunning plane. So as I said earlier, it's classed as a 5th generation fighter. This is the newest generation of fighters available. They're classed as 5th generation for a number of different reasons, and it's kind of controversial. Not everyone can kind of agree, but it should have some stealth capacity. It should have the ability to supercruise. Supercruise is basically the ability to maintain supersonic speeds without using your afterburners. This plane is capable of doing that at a higher level. Currently we're flying at Mach 0.77. Let's see if we can push it forwards a little bit. So let's see if we stick it onto Mach. Let's see if we can hold Mach 1. Whoa! No, not Mach 0.01. Let's see if we can hold Mach 100 without using the afterburners. So I haven't actually tried this. Again, we're going to do a lot more of this in later videos. Seeing as we have a few minutes left till our next waypoint, let's have a quick play. So we're currently at Mach 0.85. So at altitude, this plane can hold... Okay, let me just check why we're losing altitude here. Oh, we're set. So, cruising altitude, this plane, I believe, can supercruise at Mach 1.4, which is 1.4 times the speed of sound without using afterburners. There's not a huge amount of planes that can do that, and that's another reason this is classed as a 5th generation fighter. Also, another thing, I'm just thinking about it on my channel, this isn't that unusual for me, but it is actually unusual for my channel, is this is our first time leaving the... Well, this is the 2nd time leaving the UK, and our 1st time leaving Europe in this channel. So flying over in the west coast of the United States. The reason I flew from Edwards Airbase today is I am planning another video where we will be departing from Edwards Airbase. So I just wanted to get familiar with the area and also just have a look at the scenery and make sure things are looking good and nice. And they are looking okay. So we won't be flying this way for our video, but it's going to be a fairly entertaining video. I'm hopefully going to be able to record it tomorrow night and release it in a few days. For some reason our altitude is climbing ridiculously. It's because for some reason it is no longer locked in. Even when flying with autopilot in these planes, in any plane I imagine, it's always good to keep an eye on all of your systems and make sure things are working properly. I've noticed in this plane particularly, it seems to have the occasional issue with if the autopilot shutting off or the autopilot not holding the location. So always just keep an eye on your speed here, your altitude here, your heading up here, and if you have it on the map, the flight planner, keep an eye on this line here. Just make sure everything is kind of going as planned, because it doesn't always work. So we're about 6 minutes from our next waypoint. approaching Mach 1 now. We have, let's have a look at our fuel data quickly. We have half an hour left of fuel. So let's have a little bit of a play. Let's go back to speed and let's push this up to 1.4. Let's see if we can take it up to 1.4. Jump outside again. See, we're starting to use afterburners here. So we'll jump back in. I'm going to look at the fuel very closely here and just make sure it's not getting too ridiculous. Okay, so you can see we're at about between 9 and 15 minutes of fuel time remaining, which is pretty concerning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it down and lock it in at Mach 1.2. Because it looks like we can hold that a little bit more steadily. So if I jump back into fuel here, you can see now I've got about half an hour of fuel left. This is 1.2 speed of sound. This is pretty fast. And again, there's not a lot of planes that can maintain this speed without using afterburner. You can tell we're not using afterburner because that fuel time is at half an hour occasionally. Might be flashing on and off. Yes, we're flashing on and off between afterburner and not, just I assume the nature of the simulator more than the nature of the plane. You can see here if we go to our waypoint, we're now down to 3 minutes to a waypoint, so it's a significant amount of speed difference here. Seem to be hitting a lot of turbulence at this speed. I'm not sure if that's an artifact of the speed or just where we are. We do seem to be hitting a lot of turbulence. The plane seems to be turning very tightly to keep us on track. I'm actually just going to make sure we're still locked in. We're not. We are now locked back in. This is why we're here. Let's check the altitude. The altitude is fine. So again, you see what I mean. Constantly checking all the data. While we're doing this, I'm just going to jump onto my phone and see if I can pull up the ILS information for Nellis Air Force Base, Nellis AFB, FSX. Obviously, it's always very useful to do this beforehand, but seeing as the autopilot in this plane is pretty phenomenal, I don't mind going a little bit hands off. So let's see if I can pull the ILS data. It's very important here. I can. All I'm going to do actually is just very quickly. If you go to the map here, if we just zoom out a little bit. So that should be, that is not Nellis. Where's Nellis? Is that Nellis? Okay, yeah, here we go, Nellis Airport. Go into that. We can see here runway 21 left, concrete runway, and the ILS frequency is 109,100. And we're going to be flying in at a heading of 207. So I completely forgot that number the second I clicked away. Let's jump back in. So 109,100. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to nav along the top bar here. We're going to click down, go to ILS1, go down a couple of pages, and frequency adjust. Click that button there. Go 109,700. I'm not 100% sure that's right, but let's dial it in. Let's check that very quickly. I have the worst memory in history. I imagine a lot of you guys are shouting at me now because you know exactly what it is. Let's see if I can find Nellis. Where you is? Nope. Nope. Yes. 109,100. Okay, I was wrong. Remarkable. 109,100. Okay, try it again. Okay, so I think what you need to do is type 109,100. Yep, so that locks us in on the ILS course. currently, I believe we should still be flying our waypoint, which we are. I feel like this map perhaps isn't updating. The map wasn't updating, that's very interesting. I've noticed this occasionally, this map kind of freezes. If you zoom it in and out, it will kind of lock it back in. That's another good thing to keep there. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take it out of Autopilot. I'm going to leave Autopilot altitude on. I'm going to take the nav off. I'm also going to bring the speed back down to 350, just as we're coming up to land. So we're going to see the plane brake very, very hard here. And we're going to start a nice 30-degree left turn. And this is going to be our flight plan into Nellis Air Force Base. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to go to approach. What I'm going to do here, I'm not sure if this does anything, but I'm just going to check the volume on the ILS page. And I'm going to go here. What I believe is going to happen here is, you see the information on this screen here. So we're on the ILS, so we're going to the nav, down the page, and onto ILS. We have this locked in at 109100, which we know is correct. And I believe what will happen is, as we get towards the ILS beacon, so we know we're landing on runway 20, I believe, or 27, I can't remember what I said. This heading here, down this path, will take us into that ILS path. I believe when we get close enough, this should fill in, and that will show that we have connected to the ILS beacon, and then I'll show you guys how to do the approach. Again, I'm very inexperienced with the ILS approaches, so this may or may not go very well. For now, let's make sure we're maintaining our flight plan. Disable speed control, just give it a little bit more juice just to get some things moving here a little bit. Let's get to a waypoint. Actually, just bang our fuel data on, just make sure we're not, there we go. So we kind of keep it around that half-hour mark there on fuel time remaining. Shows we're just outside of the outside of the afterburner settings. We're not burning a huge amount of fuel. And at the same time, you see here, we've half the time to our next waypoint. So once again, I just want to thank Prez for giving me the idea to do this kind of, not only this video, but this kind of series of videos on these planes. If you do have any questions yourself about the plane that you'd like to know, or if you have any recommendations for planes that you would like me to fly and kind of do tutorials on, and as always, this is kind of unrelated to this particular tutorial series, you just want me to fly a certain fly, or fly something in particular, please, please, please leave a comment. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. The reason I do this is because I love chatting with you guys. So yeah, please leave a comment, and hopefully I'll get back to you. This is a great example. Like, Christopher messaged me about 12 hours ago. I got back to him and promised him this video, and I'm recording it now. Hopefully I'm going to get it out tonight. I'm not sure. It's getting a little bit late here in England, and I do have work, and I completely forgot that altitude control's off. So let's start diving down. I'm going to throttle right back just to bring our speed back, and we're going to try and climb, descend down pretty rapidly towards our next waypoint. at 20,000 feet here. This is what happens if I get talking. I don't always pay attention to what I'm doing, which is never a good idea when you are flying fast jets. About 1 minute 20 seconds from our next waypoint. So again, just going to dive down as fast as possible. We should be able to get down to about 4,000 feet before we hit this waypoint, which is about where we're going to want to be as we come in for our final approach to Nellis Air Force Base. Good way to work this out, by the way. As you can see, the number here above our altitude. This is our descent or climb speed in feet per minute. So as I said, we're about a minute from our waypoint and we're descending about 10,000 feet a minute. Which means when we hit our waypoint, we're going to be hitting the ground. Unless we pull up, and of course we will pull up. We're just passing 7,500 feet. So we're going to start tailing off this dive. Again, seem to be hitting a little bit of weather here. Start. Nice turn. Okay. While we're doing this, I wouldn't recommend you do this during a turn, but it's fine. I'm just going to pull up the ILS screen again so we can just see if and when we lock into this ILS beacon. If we do not lock in, I'll just go for a manual landing. I would quite like to demonstrate the ILS capabilities of this plane, and actually the ILS capabilities of all planes, to be perfectly honest. So we'll level out here. Beautiful. And I'm just going to dump us back into this for now, because I'm going to be doing some fiddling if we don't hit the ILS beacon. Just going to lock ourselves into 3,000 feet on the altitude. We'll lock our speed into 350. Let's lock it to 300. And then lock this into a nav. Then we should be able to get back to nav, into ILS, and still tuned in to 109100, which should be the ILS beacon for Nellis Air Base. And we are currently 13 minutes apparently. That will go down. We've got a bit of speed to gather up. The cool thing about this plane is all these screens are adjustable. So you hit menu here. You have your attitude indicator. You have your HSI, your heading indicator. What have we got here? Got our fuel, which you've seen on the bottom one. Our engine control panel. Our systems, the rest is not working. You also have checklists. They're not the most useful checklists ever, but they are there if you need them. And you can scroll down through them, go through different pages. I'm not even entirely sure what checklists these are. So we've got AFD, LSFD, Generator 1, Generator 2. So these are the start checklists by the looks of it. I'm not entirely sure about those, I'm going to be honest, but good to know. What were we on here? We're on systems here, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, let's jump back over to our ILS. See if we're getting any closer to picking anything up. My one kind of complaint about this plane is I feel like the documentation could be better. It's certainly taken me a lot of experimentation. You can see even now I'm kind of still not quite getting to grips with the... I'm just going to switch over to radar altitude here just to make sure we're not too low, because we are extremely bloody low right now. I'm just going to pop this up to 4,000 feet because our radar altitude is very low. So you get two kind of altitude, I should say, just in case you understand what I'm talking about. You have the barometric altitude, which is basically your height above sea level, and you have your radar altitude, which is your height above the ground. So barometrically, we were at 3,000 feet, which is very reasonable flight level, and on the radar we were actually at 500 feet, which is an exceptionally low flight level. So I've just put us over onto radar mode by going to altitude and switching this over to radar, and then bumped up the autopilot, autopilot height just to 4,000 feet, brings us up to about 1,500 radar feet, which is much more comfortable. So again, we're just going to hope we are at some point going to be picking up this ILS beacon, and we'll try and fly an ILS landing. For some reason our autopilot is going a bit nuts here, so I'm actually going to just disengage that, just hold us up manually. Just put a little bit more there. Okay. Let's jump out of the plane and just go into this nice quiet flight time here, waiting to hopefully pick up this beacon. Again, this plane is just absolutely stunning. It really is just an absolute work of art. I can only imagine what it would be like to fly something like this in real life, you know. Sadly, as far as I know, it's not actually in production anymore. I think it's going to be replaced by the F-35 Lightning, I believe. I'm not sure if that is actually flying yet. I haven't looked into this. That's going to be the US Air Force's new 5th generation fighter. I was having a look today, and India, China, Russia all have 5th generation fighters either being tested or being developed. It's a pretty amazing time for aviation, I've got to say. Like, these planes are just stunning. We seem to have an aerial off to our right hand side here. Let's just have a look at that and make sure that's not going to be a bad thing for us. It's interesting. Looks like we're going to be clear of it, so I'm not so concerned. Flying at a radar altitude of about 2,500 feet right now. Still haven't picked up our ILS, but we shall see what happens there. So we should still be locked into it. So let's jump back into the map very quickly here and just make sure. We just jump over and so you can see here you have the ILS feather. So this is, as we fly into it, this should kind of pick us up. You can see we're actually flying slightly to the left of it on our heading, so what I'm going to do is take us out of autopilot. Let's put it back into ILS just so we can see when we pick it up. So we're flying slightly to the left of it, so I'm just going to bank over right. Just get ourselves off flight plan a little bit. Again, it seems our central map here has frozen. Just going to get out a little ways here, and then I'm going to fly us back in. And this should just guarantee that we're going to be hitting that ILS feather there, which will hopefully pick us up on the beacon and allow us to fly ourselves in. About 4 minutes from the airport, so I'm hoping I'm going to pick up an ILS fairly soon. Looks like we picked up something on the ILS here. So you can see now on the screen, we have our heading, we have the ident, and the range is apparently not working quite yet. So I'm just going to try and stick us into approach control here and see what actually happens. Let's just bang that in. And see where this actually wants to take us. Looks like we've just lost our ILS, interestingly. No, we're still kind of locked. Okay, I don't entirely understand all of how this ILS works. But it seems for now it is flying us in. So I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on everything that's going on here. See that I just went into approach control and turned approach on, which should have locked us into that ILS beacon. We're showing ILS on this left panel over here, so I'm pretty comfortable we're going to be on. I think as we get closer to the airfield, we're going to see like a glide slope and kind of flight plan indicator here. I'm going to be very much making sure I'm pretty hands-on with the flying here, because I've got to say I'm not extremely confident right now. Especially given that we seem to be coming down very low over these mountains.
Low altitude, low altitude.
Flying nose level. A little bit more speed. Don't want to be slowing down this much. There we go. Showing around 2 minutes from the airbase right now. So.
Low altitude, low altitude.
Okay. So I'm actually just gonna nose up a little bit here, get a little bit more speed. Still a little bit concerned about our ILS situation here. It seems we are not lined up for any runway. So what I'm actually going to do is just speed right back to the approach after we can get proper ILS lock. I mean, I think whatever happens here, we are going to be okay. Well, it seems our ILS did not want to play ball there, so let's just fly in by hand here.
Obstacle ahead.
Okay, let's get nice lined up down the centre line there. And a little bit early. Okay, it was not the most graceful landing ever. Partly because I was relying on the ILS and it didn't seem to want to lock in. But again, we'll go into that into a later video. But nonetheless, we're down. Just get ourselves to a stop. And there we go, that was the quick start and some basic flight systems tutorial for the F22 Raptor in FSX. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like. If you're not subscribed, please hit subscribe. If you hated the video, hit dislike. I would appreciate if you told me why. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time.